What if the real country America fears in 2025 is not the giant with the world's biggest population and massive military, but a tiny island with no natural resources and a population smaller than many US cities? What if the true threat to America's global dominance is a nation that wins not with size, but with intelligence, strategy, and precision? In this video, we uncover why America fears Singapore more than China in 2025, and the answers will shock you. Singapore may be small, but its influence, technology, and global power reach far deeper into the world system than most people realize. It operates quietly, efficiently, and strategically, and that is exactly why Washington sees it as a uniquely dangerous competitor. Welcome to infoSphere. And today we reveal the hidden truth behind Singapore's unstoppable rise. Singapore wins with precision, while China wins with size. Singapore's relationship with the United States is unlike that of any other country, because Singapore represents a kind of power America cannot easily understand, counter, or control. While China competes with the United States through massive population, huge military expansion, and industrial-scale economic growth, Singapore competes through something far more threatening to America's system: efficiency, precision, and strategic intelligence. This is what makes Singapore far more unpredictable and in many ways far more fearsome. Singapore does not need a billion-plus population, nor does it need a massive navy or sprawling territory. Instead, it uses brainpower, innovation, and disciplined governance to outperform nations many times its size. And here is what really worries America. Almost every global index that measures effectiveness, from ease of doing business to financial stability, to technological readiness, to logistic performance, to rule of law, places Singapore at or near the top, often outranking both China and the United States. Americans see this small nation beating them in education, beating them in infrastructure, beating them in smart city development, beating them in airport efficiency, and even beating them in military technology per capita. While China overwhelms competitors by size, Singapore wins by doing things better, faster, and more intelligently. In a world where wars are increasingly digital, economic, and technological rather than territorial, Singapore's model is far more aligned with the future. This means Singapore is not just competing with America, it is showing the world a superior version of capitalism, governance, and innovation, and that hits the US where it hurts, because Singapore represents a proof that America's large-scale, chaotic political system is no longer the ultimate model. America does not fear Singapore because it is big. It fears Singapore because it is better in too many critical areas that define success in the 21st century. And as the world shifts towards smarter, smaller, and more efficient nations, Singapore's rise becomes a direct challenge to US dominance. Singapore controls critical trade routes America cannot replace. When American strategists look at global maps, one red circle stands out above all others: the Strait of Malacca, one of the world's most important maritime choke points. And right next to that choke point stands Singapore. This tiny island nation sits at the crossroads of global trade, where nearly 1/3 of the world's shipping passes every year. In other words, Singapore sits in a position China desperately wants, and America desperately depends on. If Singapore controls access, efficiency, and monitoring of this region, and it does, then it holds influence over trillions of dollars worth of global commerce. This is exactly why the United States fears Singapore's rise more than China's. China may have enormous power, but Singapore has strategic positioning that the US cannot replicate anywhere else in the world. Washington knows it. The Pentagon knows it. And every global shipping company knows it. Singapore's port is consistently ranked one of the best on the planet, regularly outperforming larger ports in Shanghai, Los Angeles, or Rotterdam. But this goes deeper than just maritime trade. Singapore also controls information flows, tech flows, and financial flows through its interconnected global networks. It acts as a gateway for Western companies to access Asia and for Asian markets to access the West. It is the bridge that China cannot replace and America cannot lose. And while China invests in alternative routes like the Belt and Road Initiative, none of them carry the same trust, efficiency, or reliability as Singapore's system. What truly scares America is that Singapore's influence over global trade does not require military power. It requires trust, neutrality, and competence. Three things Singapore has mastered. If Singapore ever shifts its strategic alignment or tightens its control over trade routes, it could disrupt markets, reroute global supply chains, and reshape the balance of economic power overnight. America fears Singapore not because of brute force, but because of strategic leverage over the world's most critical arteries of commerce. Singapore's military technology is quietly more advanced than America expected. America has always measured military strength by size. The size of the army, the size of the navy, the size of the budget. But Singapore proved something that genuinely unsettled UN defense analysts, that a small nation with the right technology can outperform larger militaries in key areas. Singapore invests heavily, not in numbers, but in intelligence-driven, precision-based, high-tech systems. And this is what scares America. Singapore's Air Force has some of the most advanced fighters on Earth, including cutting-edge F-35 jets, which even many US allies are not approved to buy. Its pilots are trained in some of the most rigorous programs in the world, often outperforming larger nations in joint exercises. Its army is not the biggest, but it is one of the most technologically integrated, using advanced drones, artificial intelligence systems, battlefield sensors, and automated defense infrastructures. Singapore's naval capabilities are small but extremely modern, built around high-speed response vessels and some of the world's best anti-submarine systems for its size. But the real power lies in Singapore's cyber defense and intelligence network. America knows China invests heavily in cyber warfare. But Singapore's cyber capability is more alarming because it is far more precise, efficient, and almost impossible to detect. The US has seen Singapore quietly develop world-class surveillance tools, encryption systems, and counterintelligence frameworks that rival much larger nations. Singapore even trains US personnel in certain cybersecurity techniques, a fact that embarrasses American intelligence agencies. In modern warfare, where battles are fought in the digital world long before they reach land or sea, Singapore's advanced tech-based defense model is a threat America cannot easily counter. It represents the future of warfare: compact, intelligent, decentralized, and highly technological. And because Singapore maintains neutrality, its true capabilities are never fully disclosed, making it even more unpredictable from Washington's perspective. America fears China's numbers, but it fears Singapore's technology. Singapore's financial power threatens US global dominance. America's biggest fear has nothing to do with military conflict or political rivalry. It is about losing control over global finance. And this is where Singapore quietly becomes far more threatening than China. While China pushes the world to use its currency through aggressive political pressure, Singapore does something far more powerful. It wins trust. Investors, corporations, sovereign wealth funds, and billionaires from every continent store their money in Singapore because it is safe, stable, corruption-free, and technologically advanced. America sees this as a direct threat to the dominance of the US dollar. If countries increasingly use Singapore as their financial hub, America's influence over global financial systems weakens dramatically. Singapore's financial institutions are some of the most respected and regulated in the world, offering a level of transparency and stability that even the US struggles to maintain. American banks have suffered scandals, collapses, and political interference. Singaporean banks have not. This difference matters. Singapore also manages massive investment vehicles such as Temasek Holdings and GIC, which control hundreds of billions of dollars and invest strategically all over the world. These funds quietly shape global markets, from tech startups to infrastructure to biotech research. Their decisions influence global trends in ways most Americans do not even realize. Meanwhile, Chinese money is seen as politically risky, but Singaporean money is seen as neutral and reliable, making it even more powerful. The US fears that as more countries move their financial operations to Singapore, the global balance of power will shift away from New York and Washington. This is not a future possibility. It is already happening. Major multinational corporations now run their Asian headquarters from Singapore, and many American companies rely on Singaporean banks, regulations, and investment flows to operate. If Singapore ever decides to reshape the financial landscape or tighten its control on global capital, America cannot stop it. Singapore's financial supremacy is built on trust and efficiency, and that is something America cannot replace. Singapore's education system produces elite talent the US cannot match. One of the deepest fears inside American universities and tech companies is that Singapore has crafted an education system capable of producing elite talent at a rate the United States cannot compete with. This is not about memorizing textbooks or forcing discipline. It is about engineering a system that blends creativity, problem-solving, technological fluency, and global competitiveness, the exact combination that fuels 21st century innovation. And Singapore is doing it better than America. For many years now, Singaporean students have ranked among the top performers in reading, science, mathematics, and problem-solving across global assessments. But what truly scares US policymakers in 2025 is that Singapore is now exporting its model. Countries like the United Arab Emirates, Kazakhstan, Vietnam, and even parts of Europe have begun adopting Singapore-style curriculums. This means Singapore's influence in educational innovation is spreading worldwide, while America's model is stagnating. Meanwhile, Singapore's universities, such as the National University of Singapore and Nanyang Technological University, are rising in global rankings, often outperforming American universities in engineering, computing, and technology. Many of America's brightest young minds are now moving to Singapore for work or research, attracted by clean environments, high salaries, safe society, and world-class labs. And US tech companies are quietly recruiting large numbers of Singaporean graduates because they are considered plug-and-play elite, requiring far less training, adaptation, or adjustment than American graduates. This threatens America's traditional dominance in innovation because Singapore is becoming a global magnet for talent. Even the US government acknowledges that Singaporean education produces sharper analytical thinkers, better engineers, and more adaptable leaders. In short, America fears Singapore's education system because it is not just producing students, it is producing the workforce of the future. And every year that workforce becomes more influential in shaping global technology, finance, science, logistics, and security, accelerating Singapore's rise while America struggles with declining educational performance. So after everything we've uncovered, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. America does not fear Singapore because it is big. It fears Singapore because it is brilliant. In 2025, global power is no longer defined by land size, population count, or military numbers. It is defined by strategy, technology, intelligence, stability, and trust. And Singapore beats almost every major power in these areas, including the United States. Singapore has become the country that exposes America's weaknesses. It shows the world that a nation can rise without chaos, without corruption, without political division, and without the constant cycle of decline and rebuilding. It proves that excellence still matters, that discipline can still win, and that a small country can lead the world by being smarter rather than louder. And that, more than anything, is what America fears. Singapore represents the future, a future where efficiency replaces ego, where innovation replaces rhetoric, and where results replace excuses. As we close, remember this: power is not about size. Power is about impact. And Singapore's impact on the world is growing fast, faster than China in some areas, and faster than America expected. Whether the world is ready or not, Singapore is shaping the 21st century in its own way, and America knows it. Thank you for watching infoSphere. If you enjoy deep global analysis, powerful stories and eye-opening perspectives, make sure to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Your support helps us continue creating content that reveals the hidden truths behind world events. See you in the next video. Stay curious, stay informed, stay ahead.